On the 12th day of holiday baking, For Love of the Mouse gave to me Bourbon on the Rocks cookies. Welcome back to another 12 days of holiday baking video. This is our final video in the series and we are so excited that you are here with us today. We tried these cookies in Disney Springs at Polite Pig on our last trip to Disney and it was to die for. So I of course had to recreate the recipe. These cookies are amazing, they're a crowd pleaser, and they're definitely a conversation starter. They include bourbon and rock candy chocolates. So right now what I've got going on is I've got some brown butter going on the burner behind me. So if you've never made brown butter, we're going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute. But first things first, if you're new around here, make sure that you click that subscribe button so that you're subscribed to our channel, that like button if you like what we're doing and you like holiday baking, and that bell notification so that you can be notified every time we release a video. This series has been so much fun. I love holiday baking. It is one of my favorite things to do all year, and I look forward to doing this all year long. Not to say I don't bake all year, but this is a little bit more special. So without further ado, let's jump right in to these Bourbon on the Rocks cookies inspired by the Polite Pig in Disney Springs. Brown butter is done. As you can see, it took a little bit of time and a little bit of patience, but what you want with brown butter is you want to continuously stir on low heat until it starts to foam and you can see like a golden brown color. Now you'll also be able to smell a nutty aroma coming off of the butter, and that's how you know it's there. You want to make sure you pull it off as soon as you smell the nutty flavor coming off of the butter. Start to see that foam and then see it turn a deep golden brown. And you don't want to go any farther than that because then you'll have burned butter, and that's a whole different thing that we don't want in these cookies. Now that needs to cool completely and start to harden before we use it in our cookies. So it's going to take about an hour, so I will see you guys in an hour. But for you, it'll just seem like a minute. So we have our brown butter all cooled to room temperature. I put it in the refrigerator for about 2 hours, and then I pulled it out of the refrigerator and let the chill come off of it so that it is perfect, it's soft, and it's ready to go into our mixer. In our mixer, I have a half a cup of white sugar and a cup and a half of dark brown sugar that was tightly packed. So I'm going to go in and add our brown butter. You want to get all that delicious butter in there because that brown butter packs an amazing flavor. If you've never had a brown butter cookie before, you are in for a treat. So we're going to start our mixer and we're going to cream this together for about 3 minutes until it's light and fluffy. So we have our butter and our sugars mixed together, and then in this bowl over here I have a teaspoon of espresso powder mixed with 4 tablespoons of bourbon and a splash of vanilla. So in this bowl over here, I just mixed that together, and we want to completely dissolve all of the granules from the espresso powder. If you've been around for a while, you guys know I love my sifter. So in our sifter, we're going to combine 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Sifting has really become a lost art in baking. A lot of people have moved away from it. It is an extra step that a lot of people just don't want to take, and I get that. It's a lot to bake from scratch, but that extra step just really goes to helping to make your cookies light and fluffy and airy, and so it really is worth it to take that extra minute to just sift everything together. Now next we're going to add a teaspoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of salt. These cookies are going to be really, really sweet and rich, and so the salt is just going to counterbalance that and really help the flavors to stand out. So we're going to take our sifter Now this sifter was my great-grandmother's, and then it was my grandmother's, and when my grandmother passed, it became mine. So it's really, really special to me. It really takes me back to baking with her for the holidays whenever I get to use it. So that's another reason I love to sift, is it takes me back to all those childhood memories baking with my grandmother for the holidays, and those memories are just timeless. So gotta have my sifter. So we've sifted together our dry ingredients. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add 2 whole eggs and 1 egg yolk to our mixer. You can use a bowl if you don't want to break your eggs directly into your mixer. I like to live on the wild side, so I just pray that we don't get any shells in, and I just break them right in. And then I have my 1 egg yolk that I separated and put into that little bowl. So we're going to mix those together with our butter and sugars. So I'm going to take my 1/2 cup measure, and I'm going to alternate between our dry ingredients and our espresso bourbon mixture. So I'm going to put about 1 cup of the dry ingredients in, and then I'm going to pour about 1/2 of our bourbon espresso mixture, and I'm going to mix that until just combined. You want to be really careful not to overmix at this stage, because that's what's going to make your cookies tough and not chewy and light and airy. That's what we really want. So we've got that. We're going to add another cup. You can pour it directly in. I like to use this sometimes. It just helps to not make as big of a mess. I am a very messy baker. Then we're going to add the remainder of our wet ingredients. Gently mix that. And you always want to end on dry ingredients. So we have just a little bit left. I'm going to gently add that in there. And we want it to mix until it's just incorporated. So the next thing that we're going to do are, not only are we going to coat these in our rock candies. These are chocolate rocks. I found these on Amazon. You can find them at a lot of baking stores. Like I said, you can find them on Amazon. Sometimes Target has them, also Hobby Lobby. But first, we are going to add some chocolate chips. I'm going to add about 1/2 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Now the cookies at Disney Springs are giant. We are not going to make these as giant, but you absolutely can do that if you'd like to do that. But they are also chock full of chocolate chips. So I'm going to go ahead and add another 1/2 cup. These smell absolutely delicious. About 1/4 cup more. So we have our dough mixed together. We've got our chocolate chips all incorporated. The next step is that this dough does need to chill. So unfortunately, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer to enjoy these delicious cookies. But we're going to tightly wrap this dough. We're going to refrigerate it for at least 3 hours. Now, another way you could do it is you can refrigerate this for as much as 24 hours. You want to make sure that your dough is tightly wrapped. Otherwise, it will take on the flavors of other things that are in your refrigerator. So we are going to tightly wrap this dough, and then we are going to refrigerate it for at least 3 hours before we bake it. And by the miracle of the camera, we are back. We have our dough, which has been chilling for actually about 19 hours, because I made this last night, full disclosure. And we are going to put this onto our cookie sheets, and then we're going to bake it. And then the second it comes out of the oven, we're going to cover it with our chocolate rocks. If you put these on prior to going into the oven, they will probably melt and run together. So we want our rocks to be rocks. And so we're going to put those on as soon as they come out of the oven. I'm going to use my cookie scoop, and we have our dough here, and I'm going to place these on here. We're going to pop them into a 350-degree oven for about 10 to 13 minutes until they are just starting to become golden and set. And then, like I said, as soon as we pull them out, we're going to top them with those rocks. Let's get started. Cookies in the oven. I have the oven preheated to 350 degrees. My Silpat mat's down, and then I scooped these out using a small cookie scoop, rolled them just a little bit so that they were all pretty uniform, popped them into the oven for about 8 minutes. As soon as they come out of the oven, we are going to top them with these rock chocolates, and then we're going to pop them back into the oven for about 2 minutes to let them finish off. You don't want to put your rock chocolates on for the entire baking process, because what's going to happen is they're all going to melt together and become a gooey, disgusting mess. So you want to pre-bake your cookies, and then just for the last couple of minutes so that they can set in there but not melt, you want to top them with the chocolates. So that's what we're going to do. So after an additional 2 minutes, the cookies are out of the oven again. We're just going to let these cool slightly before we take them off of the pan, and then we'll put another batch in. And with this next batch, we're going to completely bake the cookies for the full 10 to 13 minutes until they're slightly golden brown on the bottom, and then we'll pop the rocks on top. Amazingly tasty bourbon on the rocks cookies, inspired by the cookies from the Polite Pig in Disney Springs. These cookies are delicious. I've already had a couple. They're so good. We tested both methods, one where we pulled them out a couple of minutes prior to them being completely done and put the rocks on, and the other where we did it at the end of the baking process. I will say that the rocks stayed a little bit better on the ones that we put back into the oven, but they're still delicious and they still worked out really well. I also ended up making very large cookie with the remainder of the dough, and this is about the size of the cookie that you will get at the Polite Pig. So if this is what you'd like to do, you can probably make about a dozen of these, maybe 7 to 12 of this size cookie with this recipe, and I just baked this at 350 degrees for 13 minutes and it was done. The same cooking time as the littler ones, which is kind of interesting. But that's going to do it for us today. I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and I hope you try this at home. This recipe is bursting with amazing flavor. The bourbon really adds something extra, and that brown butter, I'm telling you right now, once you go with brown butter in your cookies, you will never ever go back. Happy holidays, everyone. From our family to yours, thank you so much for stopping by. We've really enjoyed this 12 days of holiday baking, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Be sure to let us know in the comments what your favorite recipe was, and if you have any recommendations for recipes in the future, we would love to hear them. If you're new around here, make sure that you click that subscribe button, click that like button if you like what we're doing, and that bell notification to be notified every time we release a video. Merry Christmas, everybody! From our family to yours, I hope you have an amazing rest of your holiday season, and be sure to be on the lookout for more videos from For Love of the Mouse. Thank you for stopping by, and for the love of the mouse, never forget that it all started with a mouse.